What if the next superpower on Earth is not America, not China, not India, but a tiny island the size of a city? What if it was already happening and the world simply was not paying attention? Singapore, a nation with no natural resources, no farmland, and no strategic depth. A country so small you can drive across it in 30 minutes. And yet, right now, it is quietly engineering one of the most extraordinary national transformations in human history. In the next 10 years, this tiny island is going to become the most advanced, most connected, and most powerful city-state the world has ever seen. And almost nobody is talking about it. The numbers are staggering. The ambition is jaw-dropping. And the strategy is so precise, so calculated, and so relentlessly executed that by the time the rest of the world wakes up, Singapore will already be a decade ahead. So buckle up, because what you are about to hear will completely change the way you look at this island forever. Point 1. Singapore is becoming the AI capital of Asia. Singapore is not just investing in artificial intelligence, it is betting its entire future on it. The government has pledged over $1 billion over the next 5 years, specifically to build national AI infrastructure. Global tech giants like Google, Microsoft, and Meta have already poured tens of billions of dollars into data centers on this tiny island. Why? Because Singapore offers something almost no other nation can: political stability, zero corruption, world-class infrastructure, and a government that actually moves fast. The country is training over 100,000 workers in AI skills every single year. It has built dedicated AI research institutes, embedded machine learning into healthcare, finance, and urban planning. When AI reshapes the global economy, and it will, Singapore has already positioned itself to be the brain, not the bystander. Point 2. The world's most ambitious port is getting smarter. Singapore is home to one of the busiest ports on the planet. Every single year, over 140,000 vessels pass through its waters. But here is what makes the next 10 years different. Singapore is building a brand new, fully automated megaport called Tuas. When completed, it will be the single largest fully automated port in the world, capable of handling 65 million containers per year. That is nearly double the current capacity. Robotic cranes, autonomous vehicles, AI-driven logistics, zero human error. This is not an upgrade, this is a reinvention, and it will cement Singapore as the irreplaceable heartbeat of global trade for the next 50 years. Point 3. Singapore is solving the global water crisis and selling the solution. Singapore has no natural freshwater source. None. And yet, today, it is one of the most water-secure nations on Earth. How? Through one of the most advanced water recycling and desalination systems ever built by any country. Singapore recycles over 40% of its water, using a process so clean, the output is purer than most tap water in the world. They have branded it New Water. And now, Singapore is exporting this technology to water-stressed nations across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. In the next decade, as climate change turns water into the world's most precious resource, Singapore will not just be surviving, it will be leading the global water economy and making billions doing it. Point 4. Singapore is reinventing food from scratch. Here is a fact that almost nobody knows. Singapore currently imports over 90% of all its food. That is an existential vulnerability. But the Singapore government does not panic, it engineers. It has launched what it calls the 30 by 30 goal to produce 30% of its own nutritional needs locally by the year 2030. And the methods they are using are nothing short of revolutionary. Vertical farms stacked 60 stories high, lab-grown meat produced in bioreactors, insect protein factories running around the clock, algae cultivation systems on floating platforms. Singapore is turning food production into a high-tech industry, and the intellectual property it is building today will be worth hundreds of billions of dollars as global food security becomes the defining crisis of this century.
Point 5. Singapore's education system is producing the future. For decades, Singapore has ranked number 1 in global education rankings. But what is coming next is even more powerful. The government is completely redesigning its education system, not for exam performance, but for the age of artificial intelligence. Coding, critical thinking, and entrepreneurship are now mandatory from primary school. The country is integrating AI tutors into classrooms. It is partnering with MIT, Stanford, and top European universities to co-develop curriculum. And it is investing over $3 billion into its universities and research institutions over the next 5 years. The result? A generation of young Singaporeans entering the workforce who are not just smart, they are future-ready in a way that almost no other country in the world can match.
Point 6. Singapore is becoming a global wealth magnet. The ultra-wealthy of the world are quietly moving their money and themselves to Singapore at a speed that is shocking even financial insiders. In just 2 years, the number of family offices registered in Singapore has jumped from under 500 to over 3,000. Billionaires from China, India, Europe, and the United States are relocating to this island. Why? Because Singapore offers something priceless in today's world: safety, privacy, rule of law, and a government that never changes the rules overnight. As political instability grips much of the world, Singapore stands as the last true safe harbour for global capital. In the next 10 years, the concentration of wealth on this island will be unlike anything the world has ever seen in such a small geographic area. Point 7. Singapore is building the city of the future right now. Singapore's master urban plan for the next 50 years is called Long-Term Plan Review, and it reads more like science fiction than urban policy. The government is building a 100-kilometre underground city. Roads, utilities, storage facilities, and even data centres, all buried beneath the surface to free up land above. It is creating entire new districts powered by 100% renewable energy. It is planting 1 million new trees as part of its Cities in a Garden vision. Every new building must meet green certification standards, and by 2030, 80% of all buildings will be green certified. Singapore is not just building smart infrastructure, it is building the blueprint for how every major city on Earth will need to look in 50 years. Point 8. Singapore is leading the green finance revolution. The world needs to spend over $100 trillion to transition to clean energy over the next 30 years. And Singapore has decided that it will be the place where that money is raised, structured, and deployed. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, its central bank, has launched one of the most comprehensive green finance frameworks of any financial regulator in the world. Singapore is now home to over 800 financial institutions. It is fast becoming the green bond capital of Asia. It is building carbon trading markets that will handle billions of dollars in transactions per year. As the world's demand for sustainable finance explodes, Singapore has quietly built the plumbing of the green economy, and it is positioned to collect a toll on every dollar that flows through it. Point 9. Singapore is the hub of the fastest growing economic bloc on Earth. Southeast Asia is home to nearly 700 million people. Its combined economy is already the 5th largest in the world, and it is growing faster than almost any other region on the planet. By 2030, the digital economy of Southeast Asia alone is projected to reach $1 trillion. Singapore sits at the exact centre of all of this. It is the headquarters for more than 4,000 multinational corporations operating across Southeast Asia. It is the gateway through which foreign investment flows into the region. And as Southeast Asia becomes the world's next great economic superpower, Singapore is not just participating, it is orchestrating the entire show from the top floor. Point 10. Singapore's government is its greatest competitive advantage. Here is the thing most analysts miss when they try to understand Singapore. The secret weapon is not geography, it is not money, it is not even talent. It is governance. Singapore consistently ranks as the least corrupt government in Asia and one of the top 3 in the entire world. Its civil service is paid at private sector rates to attract the best minds in the country. Its long-term planning horizon stretches decades, not election cycles. When Singapore's government decides something must be done, it gets done. No political gridlock, no budget battles, no short-termism. In a world where most governments are paralysed by dysfunction, Singapore is running at a completely different speed. And that speed compounds. Every year, every decade. The gap between Singapore and the rest of the world is not closing, it is widening. Singapore should not exist. By every conventional measure of nationhood, it has no right to be as powerful, as wealthy, or as stable as it is. No resources, no land, no hinterland, no room for error. And yet here it stands, the most future-ready nation on Earth, quietly building the infrastructure of tomorrow while the rest of the world debates about yesterday. In the next 10 years, the world is going to look up from its screens and suddenly notice something extraordinary. A tiny red dot on the map of the world will have become one of the most consequential places in human civilization. Not by accident, not by luck, but by design. By relentless, intelligent, disciplined, long-term design. The question is no longer whether Singapore will shock the world. The question is whether the world will be ready when it does. If you found this eye-opening, share it with someone who still underestimates this island. And subscribe, because we are just getting started.